KGF Chapter 2 has finally hit the theaters, and if you haven't watched the film, then please do so because the second chapter is stuck to its roots and delivered, is what I wanna say, but I'm having a hard time saying it, and I wonder why. Director Prashanth Neil has surely proved that he's a monster yet again with his ability to craft a complex screenplay into something that common audiences can digest. Nevertheless, he also sort of went overboard this time and rudely played with the screenplay at some instances. In this chapter especially, like during the car chase scene and the fight that follows up, and he also over dramatized the mother song that comes late in the second half. But technically, he excelled in most other areas of the film. As they say, nobody is perfect, so no movie is perfect either. Let's mine this movie and see how much gold we'll actually find. Is it worth more than KGF Chapter 1? First and foremost, like Rocky Bhai says in this movie, there needs to be ups and downs in anything. But the background score in this film never goes down. While hardcore mass audience might not find it disturbing, some section of audience surely would. The score in most scenes is overly done. I guess the success of the first chapter pushed the music director into amping up the music at every possible scene, but he surely did overscore, or should I say he was very violent on our ears. Other than that, the songs were good, especially Tufan hits hard as it should. Now let's move on to the romance. Is there even romance in this film? There is, but chapter 1 was slightly better in this regard. Even though Reena was prideful ever since we knew her, it was bearable back then. But in the second part, though Rocky had initially brought her into his empire with force, the thing is, he had already won her in the first chapter. And even after bringing her to the minefields, he will do so much for her and even almost dies while rescuing her. But very long after that, she says, "Congratulations, I love you." And I was like, "Bitch, get the F out of here." Pardon my offensive language, but the children in the mines explain Rocky's side, good side to her beautifully. And then we don't see much change in her attitude, though it seemed as if Reena is thinking and possibly understanding Rocky during the first 2/3 of the movie. There's no scene in the film that shows that she has changed as a person, even though we only knew little about her since the beginning. And even though the director shows us like she's going to fill Rocky's mother's shoes, she really doesn't. And once she confesses her love, there will be an untimely song between them that comes more than 2 hours after the movie started, and it just made me cringe. It felt so out of place and pace. There were instances where Reena's character could have shined, like she could have jumped into the line of the bullet fire and died for the sake of Rocky, or at least she could have shown some backbone and temporarily took over Rocky's position while he was bedridden after his fight with Adhira. What I'm saying is, Reena's character can be summed up in her last lines, that Rocky should get the accolades, whereas she should get the negative remarks. And that's exactly how director Prashanth has written their relationship in the second half. Reena's character does little to nothing in this movie, and the most significant thing she did was probably holding Rocky's hand in his most vulnerable moment while he's screaming in pain after a bad loss. At least for that, I think I should have shed half a tear for Reena's anticlimactic death, but no, that doesn't happen because, like I said, it's anticlimactic, and we never got to properly connect with Reena since her story began. And don't even get me started about how the bullet even managed to strike her belly when Rocky was standing right in front of her. Anyway, I wish good luck for the future endeavors of Srinidhi, who played Reena in this movie. But let's move on to more important things. And who's more important than our protagonist Rocky Bhai, who himself declares he's the CEO of India, yet ends up dying in the middle of the ocean like nobody. Ramika Sen has been portrayed as a ruthless character, not as a saintly woman who saves everyone, who reaches out for her like Jesus did. So why did Rocky spare her? Is it because she's a woman? So if your opponent is a woman, you don't fight them? Of course, she's not the mastermind behind everything, but she's still the biggest threat the empire has got. And you're going to run away from the minefields where you buried your mother and wife because the official Prime Minister of India decided to focus her attention on the self-proclaimed CEO of India. Rocky's mother's wish was that Rocky should live with a lot of money like a king. And even though a late flashback of his mother giving a different version that he should also die like a king was forced upon our throats right before Rocky seemingly dies in this movie, the way Rocky's end was dealt doesn't quite justify his mother's words. Though it was hinted that Rocky might still be alive, it still doesn't count, as Rocky himself was not shown as being alive and being with all the gold. So, in the end, he failed to fully live up to his mother's standards, which he has been trying since the beginning. Coming to the whole political drama between Rocky and Ramika Sen, it doesn't reach a proper conclusion. The dude could have killed her in the parliament itself, but he didn't. And though she covers up Guru Pandian's death and everything related to Rocky, she doesn't spare him, even though he spared her, and she was willing to use unlawful means if it was necessary to defeat Rocky. This is the woman that Rocky refused to fight. So, no matter how I look at it, this is a clear flaw in the story that appears because the characters weren't properly fleshed out. The fault isn't with the ones playing the characters, but the one who created the characters. In a world full of villains, Rocky lost his foothold on KGF for what? And he died for what? He could have simply escaped to another country with the gold and lived like a king there, assuming another female ruler doesn't rule over there. Anyway, if we look at Adhira, this wannabe Viking dude doesn't back away even when Russian missiles come flying at him and his group. But it doesn't seem like he is doing it out of courage, but out of stupidity. Other than this awkward scene, Adhira's character is villainous enough to propel Rocky's heroism to the next level. So overall, Adhira has done well in the film. After Rocky, Adhira shines the most in the film, I guess. Now coming to the action scenes, they look badass and all, and they do start off well, but they don't hold the same level of impact till the end. Take the police station scene where Rocky starts shooting at the building and then empties 3 cases of ammunition that achieves literally nothing but waste screen time. You may think I'm nitpicking, but every second in the film is precious. So let me move on to the car chase scene where I didn't really feel for Reina to be saved. I wasn't much worried for her, so naturally while our hero is kicking Rowdy's asses to save her and he kills left and right, we don't feel the same thrill as when Rocky said happy birthday in chapter 1 and then went on to kick dozens of asses at the port, where the action was not just crisp but raw and brutal. But in this rescue driven fight scene in chapter 2, the action doesn't come to life. It doesn't jump at you as much because of the screenplay, camera and editing choices. Probably the last fight between Rocky and Adhira is the only saving grace, and I can say it's the best action piece this chapter 2 has to offer, but that also feels a bit hurried as well. If you are wondering when I'll stop roasting this film, then the time is here. Let me shower some praises too, so you'll cool down. The actors in the film have done really well. Yash supremely carried the swag needed to pull off a character that needs filling Garuda's shoes. He did a fantastic job throughout the film. Sanjay Dutt has enough sense of evil humor to put on goggles before his climax fight with Yash. So props to him as well for not disappointing us. Raveena Tandon also did a good job to express her personality, mostly through her expressions and then through her dialogues, of course. Srinidhi, well, what can I say? She didn't have much scope character-wise, so I can't say anything more about her. Raghu Ramesh and other minor characters performed well. Last but not least, Prakash Raj didn't spoil the film, so thanks for that. If we move on to other departments, then editing is top notch for the most part, but did glaring mistakes at times. Visuals and colors are pretty damn good. Cinematography levels keep changing throughout the film. Sometimes they feel exceptional, but sometimes emotions aren't captured well. There's that forced rush throughout the film that doesn't slow down some of the frames when it should. While the movie is highly engaging at times, it is nowhere near as memorable as Chapter 1, where every dialogue packed a punch and every frame was gripping in its own right. Nevertheless, credit is where credit due. Direction wise, starting with an epic introduction of Yash, Prashanth Neel has done a splendid job with the second part. But since the script itself had issues, Chapter 2 doesn't fully live up to the expectations, and that's the sad truth. Not taking out anything from Prashanth's terrific work, Chapter 1 has set too high of a benchmark for Chapter 2 to overthrow. Even if Chapter 2 collects 2000 crores at the box office, in my opinion, Chapter 1 is still a way better movie in many departments. I can keep on rambling, but all said and done, I'm extremely happy for Yash and Prashanth because they deserve all the praise and fame they can get, as I believe the chapter 1 didn't get anywhere near box office run as it would have had the director and hero been more popular nationwide back then. The hero and director pair has become the pride of Kannada cinema and to an extent Indian cinema as well. So despite all the negative remarks I pointed out in this video, if you ask me, is the movie worth watching? Then I have only one thing to say. The story has its faults, but compared to bland and boring action cinemas like Tiger Shroff's War or Allu Arjun's Sarrainodu, which somehow became box office hits, and though those movies have good dance numbers, they aren't well made. But this movie, KGF Chapter 2, is still 1,000 times better, and it also succeeds at keeping your adrenaline running. It isn't gilded gold, but it's just not the 24 karat gold that we were expecting either. So now you tell me, is it worth watching in theaters or not? If you appreciate this review, then don't respond slaggishly like how Reena approved of Rocky's love in this movie, but shoot the subscribe button, not like Adhira shot Reena, but like Rocky shot Kamal. If not, at least like the video as fast as Virat's role finished in this movie. If you wanna comment though, do it not like Kamal but like Kasim. That's it for this review guys. Thanks for watching.